Yeah. Studio
Well,
type of deal. We live
um,
now.
we live.
Yeah, we live now.
Welcome, welcome.
Yes. We had to you see, I guess what happened was I I just tried to change the time. I don't know, some tech shit, but it's all good. We in
Don't
here now.
worry. Listen,
I had
listen. It's all
yeah,
good.
I scheduled the stream ahead of time before. But no, man, we just recapping everything. And we moved. I do like a nerd news show where we review just like a bunch of cool stuff going on, like in entertainment, not necessarily like music or anything like that. Distracted Gardener, hello, not
Okay,
like
yeah.
music or anything like that necessarily, but more like
Anime and
cool,
stuff.
yeah, or like TV shows, you feel me, movies, like just cool stuff that's going on type of deal. But we doing that on Saturday mornings now. At first we were doing it um at
Thursdays,
first
right?
yeah, it was Thursday nights, but it was
I,
kind
I,
of like competing with other shows that are kind of in the same network. So we're gonna do it Saturday morning now.
okay, that's
And
great.
it
That's a perfect way to start your weekend.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then my attention was kind of all over the place when we first came in because I was fixing the stream. But like I was mentioning, the we getting ready to form a nonprofit so that we can go in. And the main focus when we first start, because again, like there's a lot of um, public initiatives that are necessary that are very much needed, but you can't do everything at once. And going into an election year, we're primarily going to focus on what we're talking about tonight, which is
Yeah.
voting, helping people get the accommodations that they need, educating them around the accommodations that are available to them. Tonight, we're going to talk about and screen share laws that have been passed all over the United States that make voting more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
IDs that you need to have, residency laws that, in fact, I think, what was it? Is it what state is it? North Dakota? Hold on, let me make sure that I'm not wrong about it.
Somewhere over there in Midwest.
South Dakota. So yeah, so it
Okay.
was South Dakota that basically made it such that anyone who moves into the state within 45 days from a voting period, they're not allowed to vote in that election,
Tuh,
which is arbitrary because that who
very.
gives a shit, but also too people who move the most are lower income because they
Absolutely.
you know so
Yep. Those are the ones that are affected most. And what you're saying is that technically that then they're ineligible to vote at all because they wouldn't be able to vote in the previous state they just lived in because they just moved.
and 45 days is a decent amount of time, you know what I'm saying, like it's and a lot of people are very um politically active in their elections and in their communities. So that definitely cuts off a lot of people. But before we kind of get into other stuff, I mean, while we're here, you working in real estate, kind of how often do you see like people moving normally? Because I've lived in, I mean, I'm 31, but like I've lived in New Jersey since 2016, and I think this is my fourth apartment. But again, like
Hmm.
I'm young. I'm still younger, but just in a sense that adults, like how much do you see kind of in terms of income brackets and how often people move or buy additional properties or stuff like that?
That it's funny you say that. So I'm gonna tackle the first question is how often you see people move. Like they always say like the hot period for real estate is like April to like 4th of July. The weather's getting nice. Kids are um end of the school year before they get to a new year. But at the end of the day, people move all throughout the year for all types of various different reasons. People change jobs, um, whether it's a divorce, um, you're relocating. I've seen it doesn't no matter what type of market it is, it can be a down market, but people still have the need to move, whatever their personal reasons are.
They could
It
have just
literally
got
happens every
evicted,
day.
or they could have just
That's what I'm
got
saying.
evicted, or couldn't afford it, so they had to leave.
It happens every day,
Yeah,
and the second part of that is when you look at the socioeconomics and income levels. You see more higher earners or higher income levels now. Obviously, they're going to own their properties, right? So like a lot of the times you'll see if I just said divorce. That's a big one once you're looking in the higher income, but that doesn't happen as often as somebody who might be renting here, or their voucher's good there, or their landlord is selling their property, property, they have to leave, or they get evicted because they can't pay anymore. So the turnover is definitely a lot higher as far as moving. I feel like once you move up the socioeconomic ladder, you're more, you have more stability there in your roots.
yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
in general, that's something that's going to affect people of a lower socioeconomic status, uh, opposed to the ones of the higher socioeconomic status.
And distracted Gardner in the chat. You probably can't see it from the phone, but she works with low income people, and she works with people who may move 3 to 5 times a year, depending on
Yeah,
what's going on. You know.
that no, that and that's not uncommon at all. That's not
Hmm.
uncommon at all. So, again, I feel like when you look at the proportionality aspect of it, um, that this law enacted, it really affects certain demographics more than it affects other demographics.
Hmm. And she was also saying, landlords refusing to do. She said in her area refuse to do leases, so one day late on payment, and they can kick people out depending on where they at. And then one of the good brother Soul Life in here, he was saying he moved out when he was 17, and by the time he was 21, he had moved over 50 times. So
Wow.
there's three,
People in the chat like, wow. See?
and it's 330 million people in the country. So just like when you scale it up, like it may not be like 60% of the country, you know what I'm saying? But that's still a lot of people that make a difference in these elections. Um,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and two, and that's some of the issues as well, because like as so many of these laws get implemented primarily in red states, um a lot of people don't necessarily know that the changes are happening, or they don't know all the details.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
and that can discourage them from participating, because it's like, what the hell? I got to have this, I got to have that. For instance, like, I mean, shit, but like, and two, one of the highlights as well of this, I mean, Republicans haven't won a popular election. I mean, and this is the federally, they haven't won a popular vote for quite some time. But
Yeah.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans kind of turned mail-in voting into a partisan issue. And I mean, I'm 31, so I can't sit here and be like, oh, well, I've paid so much attention to this throughout my life, because I haven't. But from what I've seen is, things like mail-in voting, drop boxes, ballot collection weren't as much of a partisan issue until Donald Trump lost. And
That
and yeah. So now,
that's a
and that's really kind of helped to spur all of these laws that get put into place. With Arkansas, Idaho, Montana, Oklahoma, they outlawed private grants and donations for election administration, claiming that it's unfairly helps Democrats. Georgia made this a felony if you do this. Um,
and it's funny, just going off of what you just said. It's funny because you have to think about the tactics, and you have to give Trump credit because he's very intentional with the way he does things, and he know going into the election, he knew that his base is older in age, that his base is gonna is going to be less inclined to do the mail-in voting. So as you're watching election live, you see most of these states turn red, and he knew that going in that was going to happen. He
I
knew
would
that.
say, I would say, I would just say, I would give him half credit because that also hurts him because he's still like, what about newer people who might want to vote? Like he's just,
But
he's.
but
I'm sorry.
oh
I'm
no,
just
you good,
yeah.
you
I'm
good,
just
you good.
reading this. I'm looking at this sheet, but I'm just thinking because we talk about Trump, but he's just such an idiot.
And
But he does things intentionally, but he's like his attention span is so short.
it's just like this, just like
Yeah,
this.
like he's just such an idiot.
And he was able to he was able to use the fact that look at if you're looking at if you're looking at the election in real time, all these states first turn red, and all of a sudden now they're blue once they start counting the mail-in ballots. Now it's like, wait a minute, that just fueled the fire of him saying his election fraud.
Yes, from that regard, absolutely, definitely.
That's what I was talking about as
Yeah,
far as that regard.
and
That
and
fueled the
that
fire.
Yeah, definitely, and that kind of being some of why he wanted to do it. And I think I don't know. I mean, I know parts of it had been struck down, but like Georgia, they tried to make it a misdemeanor to hand out food and water in
Yes,
long lines and
yes,
stuff like that.
yep,
Um,
and
which goes even further than than banning drop boxes and things like that, or making it really difficult for mail-in voting.
and you made a good point. The fact that Republicans have lost the popular vote federally over the last few elections, they have to change tactics and try to get less people to vote, get less people out to, and you have to
That's all
realize,
they can do.
and you have to realize what are the densely populated areas, the Democratic areas. So when you're talking about these drop box ballots, when you're talking about making it harder and having less places access for you can, so you can vote, where the long line is going to be. It's not going to be in rural county where the population's 700 in the whole county. It's
Yeah,
going to be
right.
in the densely populated areas where people
Mhm.
they try to make it harder for people who live in urban areas to vote and have them so it's less inclined for them to vote. I've seen so many different stories of people waiting hours and hours in line to vote, and then now they're like, oh, okay, now we're going to say you can't hand out water, you can't hand out food or anything because that might sway somebody's vote, quote unquote. So now this is just they're just playing on a tactic that they've been trying to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. And furthermore, their policies are so it's not even just that Republican policies are very unpopular. They haven't changed their tune since longer than you and I have been alive.
That's what that's
Republicans have been saying the same, preaching the same message, government's bad. We have to deregulate, just deregulate things just because. Oh, yeah, we got Fritza in the building. You can't see it, but now Fritza, man, she's a chef. Like not like as a profession, but she should be. Like she making beef Wellington, and I don't know if you know about beef Wellington, but it's like extremely hard to make. Like
actually I don't shout out to Fritz. I need that. I never heard of that before.
Google beef. Yeah, yeah, it's some difficult shit. I'm nowhere near the skills to do anything like that. But yeah, but like we were saying, the Republicans haven't changed their tune in so long. But in a lot of what we're gonna be doing on this channel and through our collective efforts, and that's what the nonprofit that we're setting up. A lot of what it's going to aim to do is to help make this whole process less messy for people. If you live in one of these states where they've enacted laws making it more difficult to vote in whatever way, we want to, help you to know how to get around that. And luckily, not even just like to sit here and say like we're the only ones who are doing that or who are going to do it, but all of this information is publicly available. It's very difficult
Absolutely.
to find, and that's the big problem. But some of how we're fighting to get around that, and it'll be up other people have and will continue to, as somewhat Politiscope did, is to condense this type of information so that you can see, what you can and can't do in the state. How long ahead of election day do you need to register to vote? How many IDs do you need to have in this state now? How might we help you get these IDs? Things along those lines. And I think that we're going to see a lot more effort put into that.
And I think you bring up a really good point as far as I think more in all, voters need to be more educated as far as voting. Um, as far as not only what it takes, but who they're actually voting for, or not only federally but even locally. I said this before. As far as local government is concerned, I think a lot of people, that people really think your vote matters, or your voice matters only, like, every 4 years. It's only for like 3 months around. It's a frenzy. It's a
Yes,
frenzy. You
and
know what I mean?
I've been guilty of this in many ways too. Not necessarily
I
thinking that my vote
I
doesn't
have
count, but not
I
realizing
have
how
too.
many. Like I could have voted like 50 times in the last 2 years. Like, you
Uh,
know what I'm saying? And
It's
then all these
all, yep.
and you know what else is an issue? And I can speak from personal experience for this. When you're lower income and you move a lot, you don't necessarily feel like you're a part of a community.
That is also
So
true. You just feel like you're a guest here.
yeah.
I'm only here. I go to school and I go home. I go to work and I go home. I don't know anything about this community. I don't know anything about these schools. I don't know anything about these parks. I don't have any friends here. I don't know anything about the local rec center and community center. And that's another big thing. That is also another big thing as well.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that point up.
You don't really feel rooted in the community, and you can't really blame people for that. But
No,
I do think though it is important, and part of how we can help to solve this is to make people realize, look, you still are a member of this community, and the things that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, how much, like whether
absolutely.
how much your bills are, the access to assistance with whatever issues that you have in your community, you still live there. And like for me, like I don't have, I didn't finish college. Like I'm 31. So we're kind of at a part in our lives where this is generally where people's kind of start to get the groove of
Get,
things anyway.
I
This
was
is
about
kind
to
of
say that people start gaining their feet. People start starting to walk.
and this is kind of generally where it happens regardless, kind of roughly around here. Not, and it's not even in my opinion, I feel like now I'm like coming into like actually being an adult, because like I spent my 20s kind of figuring myself out. But all
And that's
that,
what the 20s. I was gonna say. I'm sorry not to cut you off, but the
oh, they're good.
20s is literally like you being a child again. It's the first time in adulthood. You have to,
Yeah.
you might have went to school. You might have went to school for 12, 15, 16 years, or whatever the case may be. You're starting your new career. You're literally like an infant. You have to learn how to walk and crawl, and you're gonna make mistakes. That's what your 20s is for. And then that's and around our age, I turned 30 in 2 weeks. You're 31. Around our age, it's like, okay, now I'm starting to get my legs. I'm starting to gain some awareness. I'm starting to gain of things I do like, things I don't like.
Hmm.
And I'm gaining perspective of all the mistakes I made in the 20s. So this is when we start, gaining some perspective that we didn't have 10 years ago.
And perspective on how I've been a member of the community everywhere that I've lived since I've been in New Jersey. You know, and you get real caught up in trying to make something of yourself, which I mean, how can you not? You're caught up in the day-to-day grind, having to pay bills, that you're missing all of these people who are in these city council positions, who are in these appointed positions
Yes.
that aren't even
Yes.
elected. You don't even know who the hell these people are. And it makes such
Yes.
a huge difference for things like, I mean, little things like you being able to get certain types of jobs in the city that you're in or not. All of that ends up really playing out heavily in local elections. So this was just stemming off of the point of how when you're lower income and you move a lot, and you kind of your main focus is immediately like feeding yourself and like paying your
Yeah.
bills, it's easy to not really think about your ability to participate in the political process, and that makes it look like, oh, every 4 years we vote. So that
No,
plays.
that's a very good point. You got to think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you're in you're in the working class, middle class, and you're living day to day to put food on your table and provide for yourself. You don't have the mental capacity, mental energy to be able to look outside of that, to be able to look out beyond your own self. It's only
Mm-hmm.
when you start, as far as socioeconomic status or whatever, get your feet up under you, where you're living more comfortable, where now you can start looking outward and at a different aspect of it. But when somebody's working 60 hours a week, they don't have time, and they have kids and everything. They don't have time to take their time out of their day or their week to do some stuff. It might be important to them, but it's not what's important to them immediately. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at a microeconomic level instead of a macroeconomic level.
Mm-hmm. And but again, I think that that's one of the biggest crowds that we have to reach, because you're going to have your loyal voters for whatever party it is. That's typically, it comes down to the independents, which way they swing in the presidential elections. But again, more importantly, and that's really what we're mostly focused on here through this channel, is local political involvement and how big of a
Yes.
difference that makes, and how much I have skipped over. So let's take a
Me,
look at
I am also guilty of that as well.
how,
I just want to admit it here.
real
I'm also
quick,
guilty of it.
how many, including myself, but we complain about Joe Biden, or we complain. So many of the people who have the most to complain about don't vote and don't do anything. It's not even
Or
just don't vote. They don't pretend. They don't do anything in their communities. They don't volunteer. They don't do anything whatsoever. And
and
so,
and you also have a large percentage that do the bare minimum. They vote. That's what I'm saying. Every 4 years, they might go pull that ballot, but other than that, they don't do anything else, or
yeah,
they don't. Just like you said, they don't anything local in their own communities, or if a larger percentage of the people were educated and actually were involved in local, that trickles up to the top. So even when you're complaining about a Joe Biden, if a larger percentage of the population, were active in their own communities, that led up to state, that led up to federally, someone like Joe Biden wouldn't even be in that position.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it
exactly.
starts it starts from the ground level. It starts from the ground level. You worried about how the skyscraper looks at the top when you didn't even do anything at the bottom. At the bottom, it all starts at the ground level locally. That's where everything starts. You really can't complain about the vast majority of things if you're not really involved in what's going on in your own neighborhoods.
Yeah. And so now let's talk a little bit about how some of these measures, and these have been, a lot of these were put in place like months ago. So this is like 2023 measures. These aren't like brand new. But how exactly do they work? How does this make it more difficult? Okay, so this is Ohio. So the part of the law that's gotten the most attention creates new requirements for voters to present a photo ID in order to cast their ballots. Under previous law, while Ohio voters had to present some form of ID to vote, it didn't have to be a photo ID. Ohioans could still vote using other forms of ID, such as a bank statement, utility bill, or paycheck, as long as it included the address on their voter registration. Now, voters would generally have to have a photo ID to vote in person unless they have a religious objection to being photographed. So again, like it's obviously under the guise of, well, we want to make it more secure. First and foremost, people who aren't citizens don't vote. There's many reasons they don't vote. One, they don't exist on paper in this country.
Yeah,
They don't have social security numbers. They don't
they,
exist here. That's why
they,
they're
they, they don't they
undocumented.
don't they don't have W-2s,
Yeah, they don't
1099s.
exist. So I mean, obviously they exist as real people, but in terms
Absolutely.
of being citizens on paper, they don't exist. So you can't vote. Like you know how hard it would have you, how much work you would have to do to get away with that, and then for what? So you could cast one vote. You know what I'm saying? Like how much organization and resources and effort would it take? The great replacement theory. It's absurd on its face. It's ridiculous on its face. But even if we're not talking, let's not even talk about undocumented immigrants. The only reason I brought them up is because that's really why this whole photo ID thing, that's the whole branding behind it, is because we have to make sure the citizens are voting. But the bigger issue with that is because, again, that's really not a problem at all, because non-citizens, they don't vote. But the time it might take to get that photo ID, having to go to get the picture taken, having to get it mailed to you, how much does it cost? Do you have the time? Do you work every day? Do you have 2 or 3 jobs? It may be very difficult for you to go get that additional ID, on top of the fact that you may not even know you need it. So you see what I'm saying? So now you're going to sign up and it's like, damn, I got to do this and this and this. I'm not even going to vote.
I'm not even about to do that. I'm not even doing it. I'm doing all this for one vote. I'm not.
Yeah, and it's so clear. And this is from Ohio too, and this is from the same bill. And this is from January. Mail in, and this makes mail in and in-person voting more difficult. While the photo ID requirements are getting a lot of attention, HB 458 also includes numerous restrictions and changes to the laws governing mail in person voting. So you have to bring forward the deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot from noon on the 3rd day before the election day to close the business day on the 7th. I guess they changed that to make it to where you have less time. Requires mail-in ballots to arrive by the 4th day after the election instead of the 10th day. Okay, so you see that now it's the 3rd day before the election instead of the 7th day before the election.
And what does that do? And I want to know.
It's more specific.
But what is like 4 days? What is the difference of 4 days? I'll tell you what's the difference. They want less people to vote. That's all.
Yeah, and it's so obvious. It's so obvious.
And who votes in these type of ways? Blue voters. Red voters are more in person. They're more traditional. So that's all it is. That's all it is different tactics, different ways to accomplish the same goal. That's all they want. They've been losing out on a popular vote, and the younger generation is a lot more progressive than the boomers and the older generation. They're doing everything they can possibly, to try to stray away people from voting.
And that's a lot of what makes them so dangerous, because listen, the right wing in this country has 2 choices. Either they can go to the left, and by that, I'm just talking like y'all could just be like regular old fashioned Republicans. Like y'all could just bring it back to the I won't even say pre-Trump, I'll say pre-Newt Gingrich era. But rewind the clock back to the maybe when Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton first started doing their thing, like the 90s Republicans. Y'all could go to the left to be like the 90s and the 80s Republicans, or they can keep going further to the right and becoming more authoritarian, which is what they're doing.
More fascist.
They have 2 choices, and we clearly see what they're taking. And not even just that, we're talking about voting now, but I mean, bro, like we were just talking about Ohio. And Ohio and Kansas rejected the strict abortion limits for people not being able to come there from out of state. That's what Kansas did. And you really don't see in the polling, Republican voters overwhelmingly don't want 6-week abortion bans. Like, that's not because it's extreme. It's ridiculous. Like, that's not, but Republican politicians are like, no, we will do this.
And it's funny because that is the political party that wants less government. Unless
exactly.
Unless it's abortion. Because of Jesus Christ, because of my religion.
Exactly. And but the irony of it all is they're making government bigger. Like it's just bigger. It's less inclusive, but it's bigger and more authoritative. It's more powerful.
You said you said the key word right there. The key phrase, less inclusive.
Yes.
That's all it is. That's all it is. It's a gentleman's club. That's all it is. A few can do anything they want, and everyone else has to fall in line. That is the key to it all. That's the key right there. That phrase you just said.
It's a way of life. it's deeper than political policy. It is a way of life. It's getting what you want just because. That's what it is. Um, and you see it in their theocratic approach to everything. You know, God, this is what God wants. What is God? God is their ego. God is that's what God is. And again, it's becoming more and more and more just like, oh, y'all some fascists. Like that's what this is.
And I could have sworn the First Amendment is right to religion, freedom of speech, right to assemble. First thing I just said was freedom of religion, and you want to enact laws based off your beliefs that everyone else has to follow.
And speak the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and who nobody
Um,
knew who the hell. Nobody knew. I
oh,
didn't know who the fuck. I
oh,
didn't know who the hell he was.
and he has to. I
He
didn't know
look.
who he was, but he's one of them.
Well, yeah, and because we were speaking of a theocracy, some of his thing is we got. And what do they mean? Republicans kill me when they say we have to bring prayer back into the schools. Like,
Of
when
course,
was it ever in the schools?
that,
It's been in
and
private schools, but we've had separation of church and state. Like, what are you talking
and
about? Are you talking about when the pilgrims came over here? Is that what you're talking
that's
about?
what
Because
it's all. That's what it's all about. And
America didn't
that's what it's
exist
all
yet,
about.
and
Oh, guess
America
what?
didn't even exist yet.
And gay marriage? No, no, no. That's against the Bible. That's against Christ. It's all about it's all about religion. They want to create laws of the land based off what they believe, and everyone else should follow. That's
But
all it is.
but you know what's crazy about that though? Because like the reality, look, whether it's the Bible, the Torah, whatever it is, all
Oh,
of the
whatever your religious text. I'm not even, I'm not even poking fun at Christianity. I'm just talking about
no.
how people are using Christianity.
And what I was going to say to further elaborate on that point is that these religious doctrine books for the Abrahamic religions, the big three,
Yeah.
Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, they're not. It's not one book. It's many books, and
Yes.
many books from different places in the world. Different kinds of people wrote them in different times, and a lot. So I bring that up just to say it's just cherry picking at its finest, because a lot of what's in the Bible honestly is irrelevant. It's just stuff from history. Obviously, I'm not talking about parables and like the stories. I'm just talking about what the Bible. A lot of the Bible just talks about time periods. It talks about things that happen in certain time periods, and it'll talk about laws of the land in certain time periods, which really is irrelevant when it
So
comes to a
today.
spiritual path. It's irrelevant. It's just kind of like that's just like a look into the past at what some of the state laws, and those were state laws. So again, you see what I mean when I say a lot of that really it's not even relevant to a spiritual path. It's just you're cherry picking a period in time where these laws were in place, but motherfuckers was still gay because people been gay forever. You know what I'm saying? So,
Like
um,
that's even a choice. Like you can choose what you're attracted to.
yeah.
That
So
that
it's
I can talk about that forever. I don't even want to
but
get into that
all
rambling.
of this boils into this conversation about voting though, because again,
Yes,
like
it
you look,
really does. It does.
it all boils into it, because again, who do we not want voting? And even if you take out what I think it's 7% of the US population identifies as homosexual
LG.
or transgender, one LGBTQ, yes, 1%. It's like 1% identifies of adults identify as transgender, and then the whole thing, like the whole LGBTQ population, is like 7%. But the younger generations are pretty down with the cause. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like people
that's
don't
what
really care.
that's what I'm saying. The younger generation, millennials, Gen Z, were a lot more progressive and open minded than a lot of the older generations. So much more that they're using every tactic in the book to to stop people from voting. And another way is if you're a felon. If you're a felon, sorry, you
Oh
can't
yeah,
vote.
yeah, yeah.
Your vote
That
doesn't matter. Your vote doesn't matter because you committed a crime or convicted of committing a crime. Because not everybody who's convicted actually, but
we
that
can
is
have a
what it
whole
is.
discussion on that.
So
Could be a
that's
whole
that
discussion
could be a whole. That's what I'm saying.
itself.
That
Just in terms of what crime is so egregious that you should no
that
longer vote.
when
Um,
you can do whatever you can go away for 10 years, come back changed a different person, and then you have some people in this country who are not educated at all and very ignorant. Does their vote matters more than somebody who might have you know went to prison or made a mistake in their life, whatever the case may be, or has a felony.
yeah,
You
especially
know,
if you paid your debt.
somebody
Because
who doesn't and somebody who doesn't contribute anything to society. Somebody can
mhm.
come out and contribute more to society than them.
Yeah, and again,
Exactly,
especially
and
if you
that's
paid your
exactly what
debt.
your time is. That you paid your debt, exactly.
Because in my
Um,
opinion, and this is kind of another conversation, but it all goes into voting too. I mean, for me, if you should be in prison if you've hurt people egregiously,
Absolutely,
if you've taken
absolutely,
someone's life,
absolutely,
you got even if you're not
absolutely,
some murderous person, you took someone's life, and
absolutely.
you
Somebody's
got
not here anymore.
yeah, you gotta spend some time in the can for that. I mean, but again, like when you start to talk about other things like nonviolent crimes, then you get into a whole population of people who like you can't really pin that on them. It's like you didn't take someone's life. You
Yeah,
were you
white collar crime. Some people, tax evasion. How people are felons for tax evasion. They shouldn't be able to
right.
vote now.
Hold on, what's so like saying can't vote but you can run for president? Right? Trump's still running for president. Republicans still want him too.
Oh, it doesn't, but because he's by any means, he's their conscience at heart. He says and does what they want to say deep down. So it doesn't matter what he does as a person. He can do whatever he wants, and it's about the message. It's about what he personifies. It's not about the man. He can do whatever he wants, and people will still vote for him. We proved that a
He's
long time ago.
he's a
It does
feeling.
not matter. That's what I'm
Donald Trump
saying.
is a
He's a
walking
bigger. He's a
feeling.
thought. He's a thought. He's an idea.
Yeah,
He's not an
he's
actual person. Is what I'm
he's
saying. Like
the id, the ID, the id of the Republican Party, of the American right wing, the super ego
it's
of the
yeah.
GOP.
It's not about what he does as an individual. It's about the idea of what he personifies.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so here's some more from South Dakota, and this is from March again, because a lot of these been put in place. That this isn't brand new. These are things that people have to deal with now. And again, this is a lot of what we have to do. We got to let people know through various means and various efforts. It's not just how to vote, but also we'll get into this. What are you voting for? You know what I'm saying? Like, what exactly are you voting for? And there are many tangible examples of the differences between administrations, and not just at a big federal level, but at the local level. Who is in office makes a difference. So we got South Dakota. This is the residency stuff. Um, SB 139 will require individuals to live in South Dakota for at least 30 days before they can register to vote. Since South Dakota doesn't offer same day registration and instead requires voters to register at least 15 days before an election, SB 139 effectively means that anyone who moves to South Dakota within 45 days of an election would be ineligible to vote in that election. So again, like there's no logical reason for this to happen unless you just want to make it harder for certain people to vote. That's
Ab,
it.
that's the bottom line.
Nothing
And
like nothing
speak.
else.
What are your thoughts on the electoral college as far as the system?
I think it's fucking stupid. It's because it's stupid. Like, look, listen, at the end of the day, like I'm not that much of a I, I'm stubborn in a sense, but not really. If something makes sense, I'm willing to change and bend, right? So I
Me
say
too.
that to
Me too.
say there's a certain point where being principled is just bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, so anyone who's like defends like the electoral college, it's from the stance of the constitutional originality. It's a matter of principle.
Oh,
This is how things exactly. You feel me? But like at the end of the day, and I'm not somebody who's like, like I'm not an expert on any of these things, but I know that the electoral college was put into place to give slave states more representation
that's all it
because
does.
it was made so that if you own, let's say you own 300 slaves, X amount of those slaves count as people within that district so that you can get these electoral votes. Why do we still need to do this? Slavery's been abolished for quite some time. Not only has slavery been abolished for quite some time, and I did a very, very simple explanation of what the Electoral College was about. That's all it was. These people aren't citizens, but their bodies are going to count for representation in the state. That's all it was. So not only is slavery gone now, the country's so much bigger than it used to be. You feel me? Like, but when slavery was abolished, America was like half as big, not even half as big as it
13
is
count
now.
13.
You feel me?
Oh no,
So
it was more than
it was more than that by then.
that.
But I'm just
By then.
saying, like, but in terms of the United States, before the United States broke off into the Confederacy of the United States and the United States of America, or the Confederate States of America and the United States of America, the Union and the Confederacy. Before that happened, that's what the Electoral College was all about. So at the end of the day, what's the point in having it still? And then the other argument will be, well, America's not a democracy; it's a constitutional republic. Like, what the what are you're not saying anything. And especially for someone who works in the space, it's like I don't have time for these bullshit ass arguments because you're just defending your minority position. That's
Yep.
all you're doing.
And
Because if a Democrat won off the electoral college, do you think these motherfuckers would be happy about it?
absolutely not.
Of course they wouldn't.
Absolutely not. And my thing on electoral college, what it does is it actually makes some people's vote more important than others. Because let's say you live in an urban area densely populated, you might have 100 people in your building, and they all vote for one way. Let's say a few counties over, they have 100 people in their entire county, and they all vote one way because it's an entire county. It's going to weigh more than just everybody in your building. You know what I mean? And does that mean that the densely populated areas your votes matter less? Um, and Republicans always want to look at the map to say, "Oh, why did so and so win?" At the end of the day, land doesn't vote, people vote.
Yep.
Land doesn't vote. And another argument that they make is, people that are running for president, why would they ever go to rural areas? They would only go to the big cities. But at the end of the day, I also feel like um, whatever color your state is, let's say you live in a blue state, those votes, those red votes don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, you
Yeah.
know? And just because people in my state might not agree with what I'm saying, that doesn't mean my vote shouldn't matter on a grand scheme of things. On a grand scale, you could live in a red state, and vote Democrat, and it doesn't matter because the Republicans got the electoral votes in your state. So your vote in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter as far as deciding the election, but it goes for the popular vote, which doesn't really mean anything, you know.
Yep.
So it's another tactic in order um to and you also made a good point is that technically we are in a democracy, and that's all propaganda. Saying that we're a democracy is all propaganda. We've never been a democracy in this country. Um You know, we pledge allegiance to the republic, not to democracy. There's not
Hmm.
there's not a mention of democracy in any of the state's constitutions and in the nation's constitution. It's just it is all it is propaganda. All it is propaganda. It's a system that's always been in play, and it's definitely not going to change, in the near future.
Yeah, definitely won't, especially with the Supreme Court being what it is and just the court system being what it is, man. Man, it's definitely gonna take quite a bit. We got some more. And this is, I think I mentioned this. Montana Senate passes bill banning private funding for election administration. This is in February.
Why?
They passed a bill
So that doesn't even make sense.
because
That doesn't.
it helps grassroots efforts. That's why.
That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. Like in general, the political game is, but the politicians are advertised. They're paid. So
They're
that doesn't even make sense.
authoritarians.
That that
They're just totalitarian. That's all this
that
is. And
that doesn't even make that. That's literally affecting, again. Was going back to what we're saying. The jux of this whole conversation. Again, that's affecting people in a certain socioeconomic level rather than other people. When the other people who are at a higher socioeconomic level are directly involved in swaying elections, directly involved in swaying policies. But you're talking
yep.
about on a grassroots level, oh no, we can't do that. See, that's all it is. It's a few can do whatever they want, and everyone else has to fall in line. That's all. That's really all it is.
And this, and there's so much of stuff that it's so prevalent. Like it's really difficult to keep up with everything. It really is difficult to
It
keep up with everything.
it really is, and they that's how they make it. You have to go out of your way to keep up with it. You know,
Yep.
you have to go out of your way, and that's why, I think in general, voters need to be more educated, and they need to pay attention more about what they're voting for and who they're voting for, and pay attention to elections that not just the presidential election. There's more than a campaign trail every 4 years. And it's deeper than that. And by doing this, we can really enact real changes instead of just being on autopilot and doing the bare minimum. And we can elect real changes, and you don't have to complain anymore because you're actually making changes.
And I think that we just really have a great opportunity going forward due to the fact that so many of the people who are obstacles in the way are, and I've said this before, but literally at the end of their lives. They're in their 70s, they're in their 80s. Not just
That's
politicians, but
Oh
people
my
who own,
gosh.
people who are on these corporate boards. All of these people, their time is running out, and so we have a very very strong opportunity to just fill in the gaps when the vacuum presents itself.
Yeah,
It's,
they're
it's
holding on for dear life. Literally and figuratively.
Yep. And this is I think in Mississippi they tried to create an appointed court instead of an elected court so that they could like approve or deny districts that were being drawn. And again, it's just like, you'd think that uh these people, mainly it's Republicans doing this. You think that they would start to make a shift to become more popular, but that's not what they want. That they don't want. They don't care about being popular. They care about getting their way. They care
They're
about
they care
getting what they
about
want.
it. They're caring about winning. It's literally like when we think of WWE, the villain. They don't care about being liked. You feel
Yeah.
me? um,
And one of the comments in here that election days definitely need to be holidays, 100%.
That's a big one, and it needs to be national holiday for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. It there should schools, jobs. It should be a national holiday for everybody. Speaking of drawing lines, did you hear? did you hear that there were I don't know how big, it actually got, but there were certain counties in the state of Washington that were trying to redraw the border to be able um to go into the next state because um of course they were Republican counties, and Washington, the state, is very liberal. So they were really basically they were trying to change states. Did you hear about that at all?
I don't know if I heard about that specifically. I may have, but I mean, again, shit like that is going on so much and it's so prevalent. I got all these tabs open, pulled up from all these states. I got Indiana right now pulled up, voted for ID requirements for mail-in voting. Having to send like it's just it's so blatant and it's so obvious. I got too many tabs. I got too many damn tabs pulled up. Like it's too much. It's too much
Your computer about to freeze all them tabs open.
for real. All right, so look, so this it says so this it will require voters who request mail-in ballots via paper form to include two forms of ID: the last four digits of their social security number and either their 10-digit Indiana ID number or a unique identifying number from their voter record. Alternatively, voters would be allowed to supply a photocopy of their ID instead of these two numbers. So, just again, all these extra rules basically just to summarize that your vote counts. And if your vote didn't count, then gerrymandering wouldn't be a thing. Democrats gerrymander too. But gerrymandering wouldn't be a thing if your vote didn't count. As you just pointed out, whatever's going on in Washington, there wouldn't be so much effort put into redrawing districts, and there wouldn't be so much effort put into, oh, well, now you need 7 forms of ID. And you know what I'm saying? So
Yes,
it's
and I want to speaking of I want to give a big shout out to what Stacey Abrams was doing down in Georgia around election time and helping people become educated. And she helped a lot of people vote. She helped a lot of people vote, and I think what we need to do, we need to start like, if there's the election, we need to start making benchmarks for people. Like this is the day that we should start registering. We this is the day that we should start doing this, or this is the day we should start doing that, or just so as the day comes up to election day, people are not scrambling to do everything.
yep,
Or they're like, oh, I don't even want to do this. Like, I'm not even voting. Fuck it.
yep,
I think we need to make it vocalized, that certain deadlines are coming up, to order to do certain things, just so that the general population, understands how important it is to do some of the stuff early, and it will encourage a lot more people to get out and have their voice heard.
yep. And I think and somebody pointed out in here as well. And it won't just be us, but it'll be, quite a bit of people moving forward, really laying the groundwork for how to do these things. You know what I'm saying? How to go about it, especially with all of these laws. And one thing I gotta wrap it up. I gotta go out here and meet up with somebody. But I think I
That's
think
cool.
we yeah no I think that we covered pretty much everything in terms of just
Yeah,
kind of
I
what's
think
going on.
I think it's
And
a great conversation, and there's nothing that they fear more, than an educated voter, than a thorough voter. They thrive while people sleepwalking through the entire process. They thrive off people, giving up at the last minute. That's what kept the pulse alive for so long.
yeah,
Um, and we need to change the tide and change the approach that we have towards voting to where, um, or in government in general, to where, people want to get more involved, and want to enact real changes in their communities, because that's where it all starts. And the only thing that it can do is make a better future for everybody.
yeah, 100%. And so my closing remarks pretty much is just going forward. I know I'm excited about what we'll be able to do with this community and this platform. and helping to educate people on how to vote, how, what they're voting for, how to be better leaders and better participants in their communities, and also just being more active in local elections. Period. Getting better people in office, getting better people in position, and sooner or later, I think that people will some of those people will have to be us running for these offices. So
Absolutely. And that was another layer I'm glad you brought that up. That was another layer I forgot to mention that I wanted to mention is that when you have a surge of um a lot of people, a lot of educated voters, and a lot of people who are actually active in doing things in the community, what that's going to do is that's going to, a leader amongst those communities are going to arise. And when they do, um, you're able to put them in positions of power to where, wow, I saw the growth in that. I was a part of the reason why this person's in this seat and they're gonna fight for me because I've seen them do it, for some time now. That's when real changes come, and when we band together, and literally from the grassroots, from the ground floor, build this thing for the future.
yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this
Thank you,
evening.
everybody. Absolutely.
Definitely an important discussion, and one that we're going to be putting a lot of work into, especially here. Shout out to all the members. Shout out to everybody who was part of the meeting, the Zoom meeting that we had this past Sunday. And me and Kamal, we definitely gonna do this again next week because we putting the topics out so we can be more consistent. But things are
Yes,
coming together.
yes, yes. Absolutely. Everything is coming together real nicely, and I think tonight went amazing, and it was very much needed.
Yeah. All right, y'all have a good evening, and you can catch me tomorrow. I'm gonna be on normal. Well, actually, tomorrow I'm going to the barbershop at 11:30, so I'll probably stream. I'll stream in the afternoon. I'll stream sometime tomorrow afternoon when I get back from the barbershop. And then we're going to have our nerd news on Saturday morning. So y'all have a good night, and I will catch you tomorrow.
Have a good night, everybody.